What if the legends lurking in the American backwoods, swamps, and small towns weren't just stories? This week we sit down with the author of Chasing American Monsters to dive into a bunch of cryptids, creatures, and eerie beasts that haunt every corner of the U.S., from Bigfoot to the downright bizarre. And because of that, you may not look at your state the same again.
I've written 20 books. I've had 20 books published, 6 novels. The rest of them are nonfiction. And Mom was so angry with me because I kept going out in our cornfields, looking for Bigfoot tracks. One of the biggest compliments I got was from a review, and this guy was like, I look through Jason's Chasing American Monsters and find monsters I never knew about.
Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome to High Strangeness. I'm Tony, and happy almost Halloween to everybody out there. You know, all across this country, there are shadowy forests and forgotten folklore. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about some of this with the author of Chasing American Monsters, Jason Offutt. Did I say the name right?
You got my name right.
Right on.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. A lot of people don't.
Jason? Well, Jason, welcome to the show. How are you doing, man?
Hey,
how's it going?
Oh, it's going great. I really appreciate you having me on the show. This is terrific.
I'm excited. Yeah, I mean, the book seems so cool. I try to read as many as I can, but we're taping here a little early, and I haven't had a chance to get into all of the Halloween stuff just yet, but I will catch it a little later. That's all. So I want to ask, you're out there in Missouri, right?
Yes.
How are you liking it out there? You love it out there?
Oh, well, yeah, I grew up in the Midwest. Missouri, I just read today it's the fourth most affordable state to live in the country. So I guess I'm doing kind of doing well here.
That is great.
A lot of Midwest is full of nice people. And other than the humidity, it's fine.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. Yeah, I know. I mean, here, I'm in Utah. The price of living is crazy. My kids are, some of them got in the houses before it got crazy, but I've got a couple that still are trying, and so expensive out here. It's crazy. And it's like that everywhere. So very cool for Missouri to be at a place where people can still afford to do some of these things.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
Well, listen, Jason, is Halloween embraced out there in your neck of the woods?
I don't know if you want to call it embraced or lunged at and tackled. It's no, Halloween's really big out here. Yeah, I don't decorate for Halloween because I don't have to. Our neighborhood is filled with Halloween lights and spooky noises, and people love Halloween out here.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't have to because the neighbors just take care of it. I have a neighbor right next door. She doesn't, but that's because everybody in the street goes crazy. So she's like, they got it.
Yeah, I saw the best Halloween decoration I have ever seen last year. A guy down the street had a cutout of the Grinch, and the Grinch was stealing a very short string of Christmas lights off the house, and that was it.
I like it.
Yeah, it was excellent and bare minimum, it works for me.
And everybody gets that. You see that,
right.
you know what's going on.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, look, Jason, I saw your bio, and, we talked about this for a minute right before we started, but Star Trek lover, Twilight Zone, and things like that. So cool. I'm with you on all of that.
Growing up, my favorite station, we had, ABC, NBC, CBS, and PBS, and, a couple of independent stations coming out of Kansas City. And one of them played, reruns. So I would watch Gilligan's Island and Sanford and Son and all of this stuff. But, man, Star Trek, Lost in Space, and The Twilight Zone were my 3 favorites. They had me hooked. I had to watch every single episode of those. And The Twilight Zone, I teach I teach at a university, and I'm in mass media. And one of my classes is a film class. And to introduce them into the concepts I'm trying, throughout the semester to teach them, I show them a couple of Twilight Zone episodes, just to, whet their appetite.
Nice, yeah. To get them to know that cool stuff that used to be around before all this craziness that happens these days.
Well, as well as, but the cool thing about especially Star Trek and the Twilight Zone is they used science fiction to tackle current political and social issues.
Very true.
And they're still, they still work today. They're still applicable. And
yeah.
And it floors a lot of my college students whenever they, watch an episode like Number 12 Looks Just Like You, which has to do with, dystopian civilization where everybody has 1 through 12 body types and faces to pick from, and that's what they're going to look like. Everybody's beautiful because they've had this surgery, and one person doesn't want to have that. And that's still, that still works today. Absolutely,
that does. Yeah, that does. It's amazing. Even technology, the foresight that they had in some of these things. I keep thinking of the flip phone way before that was even a thing. That's pretty cool that they had some foresight. And you wonder if it wasn't a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where they showed us and then technology got impressed by it.
Well, I have read some articles that they've interviewed scientists, and they're like, I got into science because of Star Trek. I got into engineering because of Lieutenant Commander Montgomery Scott. I wanted to invent this because I saw it on Star Trek, and there's so much of that.
Yes, that's so cool. Yeah, just shaping society and the future. That's a good series right there when it does that. Well, Jason, you mentioned doing some teaching, but I also noticed that you've done quite a few things, and your path is interesting. I saw farmhand, journalist, photographer, bartender, mayor.
Yeah, mayor.
Wow, man.
Yeah, the farming. I grew up on a farm. I realized I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life because, smelling like pig manure as a high school boy, trying to get dates, that's not cool. That doesn't really work.
Yeah.
So I went to college and got a mass media degree. I worked as a journalist for 17 years, but during that 17 years, I still worked on the farm a little bit early on. I was a bartender for a while because journalists don't get paid much. I needed to have a second income, and that was a good one. But yeah, and this is something that I tell my students: experience as much as you can, and a second skill set is always important.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting, just to divert for a second. One of my kids was trying to, after college, get right to their career for their life. And I said, relax, because he was stressing out. I said, relax, man. A lot of times you find who you're going to be on your path and in those jobs, and you do this in life and you find it. I said, you're trying to jump right to stuff and you're going to miss things that make you you. So relax a little.
No,
yeah.
That's great advice because, well, I never ever wanted to work at a newspaper, and I told people that all through college, and that's the first job I had when I got out, and I fell in love with it. And if it wasn't for the fact that I was a newspaper journalist, I wouldn't have met my wife. And we've been married for 23 years, and I've got 3 kids.
Congrats.
And that's man, that's great advice. Just go out there and experience and let your life lead you where it will.
Right. So true. And I saw an interesting little documentary by, I think, of one of your students, which I thought was pretty cool. It talked about your love to tell story, the love of telling stories, and your journey to become a writer and stuff. And I thought that was so cool. I have a daughter-in-law who wants to write novels too, and I like to do these and say, look what he or she did, to kind of keep her excited about that dream that she has. So.
Well, yeah. And again, I grew up on a farm, and I was 10 and I read The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and I'm like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And of course, Dad rubbed the top of my head. He's like, yeah, what a cute boy. Yeah, you go out and do that. But, coming from my beginning and getting to, I've written 20 books. I've had 20 books published. 6 novels. The rest of them are nonfiction, but I never gave up. I don't
Yeah.
consider myself more talented than other people. There's no destiny involved with anything. I was just too dumb to give up. And if you're too dumb to give up, you're going to succeed at some point.
Yeah, just keep going,
Just
right?
keep going.
Just keep going. I love that. Great story, and thanks for sharing a few minutes of that. I think that's just inspiring right there. All the path and the turns and everything to get to doing the things that you love. I think that's amazing. So, well, Jason, American Monsters.
Mhm.
Let's get into this a little
All
bit.
right.
What first sparked your interest in monsters and cryptids, and then you decided, hey, I got to write a book about this.
Well, my first interest in monsters had to do with a lot of things when I was really young. I the TV station I mentioned earlier, they also showed monster movies all Saturday afternoon.
I was going to say Saturdays. Yep.
Yep, Saturday afternoon. So I mean, I would watch, King Kong and Mighty Joe Young and every Godzilla movie that had been made up to that point, and all sorts of Bigfoot movies, and just any of this stuff with monsters, and I fell in love with it. And then in the early '70s, I'm an old man, by the way. I just turned 60. I get in the early '70s. I always read newspapers, and there were stories about Bigfoot in my state, and
Really?
it was in Louisiana, Missouri, which was on the opposite side of the state where I grew up. I grew up close to Kansas City, which is on the west side. Louisiana, Missouri was between St. Louis and Hannibal on the east side. And but the thing is, the newspaper was reporting Bigfoot encounters in Missouri, and I'm like,
Which you wouldn't
what?
expect. Yeah.
I've,
Yeah.
I've heard of Bigfoot. I've seen the Patterson Gimlin film on something, and that absolutely floored me. And Mom was so angry with me because I kept going out in our cornfields, looking for Bigfoot tracks. But the fact that Bigfoot stories in my home state were in the newspaper,
Yeah.
that meant something
Crazy.
really important to me. And those things got me really turned on toward monsters. And I grew up watching Leonard Nimoy's In Search of, with Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and almost everything. And I've just been fascinated since I was really young, and I still am. And what led me to this book is all sorts of monster books. And I did this with a ghost book that I wrote. They're kind of centered on certain places. Ghosts of the Midwest, monsters of the Pacific Northwest. I'm like, wait a second. I want somebody to pick up my book, no matter what state they're in, and be able to turn to their state and go, hey, look at this.
Yeah.
So that's what I did with Chasing American Monsters. I alphabetically, Alaska, all the way through Wyoming. Alaska, no, it'd be Alabama. Through Wisconsin. But anyway, I went state by state, and I picked some of the most, the famous monsters like Champ, the Lake Champlain monster, and of course Bigfoot from Northern California and Oregon and Washington, and I picked some of those big ones, but I also found a whole bunch of monsters that people didn't even know about. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest compliments I got was from a review, and this guy was like, I look through Jason's Chasing American Monsters and find monsters I never knew about and put them in my Dungeons and Dragons campaign. That was a great
Nice.
compliment.
That is. Yeah, that really is. Geez, yeah, I noticed when I first kind of got a chance to see some of your book, I was like, okay, 50 chapters. And then I realized you've covered all the states, which is really cool. And like 250 creatures, something like that. Is that what I
It
saw?
ended up being 251.
Wow. So how did you screen that? Or is that pretty much all that are out there? I don't know how many there are. That's a lot.
That's a lot, but I have a book coming out in September, the follow-up called Chasing North American Monsters. And it's monsters from, the Arctic Circle all the way down to Panama. Or as the
Nice.
publisher likes to call it, from Greenland to Guatemala because with the
Yeah.
G's. But I found more than 250 monsters between there, and also at
Wow.
least one from every state that I didn't cover in my first book.
Seriously. Wow.
There are monsters and legends of. I'm only scratching the surface, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting in this podcast. Occasionally, I would do an episode where we talk about a cryptid here and there, and I didn't get into 250, but here and there, I do that in an episode, and it's amazing. Some of them, like I remember the squonk
Yeah,
and
the
different things like that.
squonk.
I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm like that poor
that
thing.
was silly, but it's fun. It's a fun one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot out there. I just didn't know about how many, but wow, 250, and you found more.
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit later. I just want to also talk about the new book that you're going to have coming out, so people will be aware of that. So, did you find any regional monsters that kind of more surprising? Like, oh, they have more of this type in this area. Like we know Bigfoot a lot in the Pacific Northwest, but did you see that throughout the states where there were like similarities in different regions that they may have been different, but they're kind of the same?
There are Bigfoot encounters in every state except Hawaii.
Yeah. Wow.
Even Rhode Island has Bigfoot reports.
That's crazy.
I know it's crazy, but Bigfoot's absolutely everywhere. There are different types of Bigfoot. You got the Harry and the Hendersons type up in the Pacific Northwest, but the the Michalak skunk ape down in Florida looks more like an orangutan. We've got what are they called? In New Hampshire, there is a tall. Well, they're all tall, but there's a thin Bigfoot that has gray fur and is really shy and hides behind trees. I think it's the tree devil is what it's called. I think so.
Oh, wow.
Or
Okay.
forest devil. There are so many types of Bigfoot across the United States to me that it doesn't seem like there's just one species, which is kind of
Yeah.
crazy to think about. There are a lot of encounters that the face of the Bigfoot looks like a gorilla. And then there are other encounters to where the face of the Bigfoot looks like a man.
Yeah.
What?
Crazy.
Yeah, there's so many differences. And of course, there's always the case that if you're out in the wilderness and you see something, you might just see something like what your mind's telling you to see.
Yeah.
And which is one of those things people are like, well, why isn't there a clear photo of it? If I'm 20 yards away from a 8-foot tall, 500-pound skunk smelling monster, last thing I want to do is pull my phone out, search for the right app and take its picture,
Yeah.
But it's the same with seeing it. There are a lot of Native American stories about throughout the centuries these hairy giants that are considered just another tribe of people. They're just big and hairy.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're cannibalistic. But they're just people. And this is one of the weird things that I kind of put together when I was researching all this, or especially the book that's coming out that includes Canada. Dr. Melba Ketchum has researched Sasquatch and has had Bigfoot DNA, or what she thinks is Bigfoot DNA, analyzed and was told that it was human with some anomalies. There's a Bigfoot researcher in Alberta who had some, what he thought was pretty sure was Bigfoot DNA, like hair, and DNA said that it was human, but with some anomalies. There was a British researcher who dug up the son of Zana. Do you know who Zana was?
No.
Decades and decades ago, an Alma, which is the Russian Bigfoot. A female was captured by this village and was this wild woman, huge, hairy. And eventually she was tamed enough to do work around the village, and the men had sex with her, and she had a couple of offspring. And one of them was a boy who was human enough to where he could speak and wear clothes and play piano, of all things. But this British researcher had his body exhumed and did DNA tests on him, and the DNA test came back human, but with some anomalies. So, all of these Bigfoot encounters, especially when they do DNA tests and they're like, come back as human, I'm like, well, they might be.
Yeah.
The anomaly part might be the fact that they're 7-8 foot tall and hairy, but the rest of them is, somebody we'd, invite over for Sunday dinner.
Yeah, and I keep thinking of like some of the more recent Bigfoot type shows that are out there, and it's a show, so it's dramatized and all that. But there's some interesting things that are going on where they appear to almost disappear, like through a portal or something, which fits into what Native Americans might think as well in certain circumstances. So that's interesting too.
Right, and I see why a lot of Bigfoot researchers are going there. Interdimensional, be it Bigfoot or whatever, that they can disappear. I'm a lot more grounded. I'm a big fan of science. Love science, and I am viewing Bigfoot as a flesh and blood creature until it's proven that he's not. If Bigfoot's not, I'm cool with that. I'm not arguing with the people who think he's interdimensional, steps into a portal or whatever. They might be absolutely right. I just want one thing proven, the most basic thing proven, until we go somewhere else. And the fact that they disappear, I've heard a ton of reports just like that. And I spent, growing up on a farm, I spent a lot of time in the woods. And there were times where I would be walking. I knew I was alone. And all of a sudden, 10 feet away from me, a deer would jump up out of the underbrush and take off. Now, a deer is not nearly as big as a Bigfoot, but it's still a large enough animal. I had no idea it was 10 feet away from me until I spooked it. So, if Bigfoot is as intelligent as we think it is, hiding is going to be a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there was a female researcher on one of these shows too. She says, and she worked with apes in research and stuff. She said these big apes would be, like you said, 10 feet away behind some brush. She didn't hear anything. She wouldn't even know it unless they wanted you to know it. So, to your point, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as you're doing your research and doing the book, was there any creatures that kind of really were creepy or unsettling, even to you as you're doing the research, where you're going,
oh, the unsettling ones? Well, I think, and I only wrote about this once, and it was only once in a book. I had a newspaper column on paranormal events that I wrote for about 4.5 years. So I wrote about these a lot, but I've only written about one in a book. Sorry. These black-eyed kids. I had a black-eyed kid report in one of my, or in Chasing American Monsters. And I think those are the creepiest.
Yeah.
And not necessarily for what I put in the book, but from the people who contacted me telling me they were black-eyed kids, which is kind of why I forgot. I dumped writing about them because my wife and I both didn't want one of these things to knock on our door.
So let me ask you, you said, was it them that contacted you, or they were reporting what they saw?
The people who reported what they saw, I gladly interviewed them. I had a couple of people get a hold of me and said, I am one of these entities.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Good for you. Have a nice life.
Yeah, please throw my number away.
Yeah, right. I'm done. I'm done. Don't email me again, please.
Ooh.
But just the thought, because writing about these, the black-eyed kids, I'm like, okay, this is probably just, like, what, Slender Man or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just urban legend type thing. And it probably still is, but you know what? I don't want somebody claiming to be one to talk to me. This one guy said that black-eyed kids were the descendants of the serpent from Genesis. I'm like, okay, good for you.
Interesting.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's like,
but those were creepy.
Yeah, that does seem creepy. And I've seen some pictures of what they might be like, and freaky. Yeah. Did you see any commonalities, patterns in areas? I think I kind of asked this. Other than Bigfoot, did you, because any of the cryptids I've kind of looked at over the years, they're like vastly different from state to state, and they're just different things. But you've done a deeper dive. Did you see anything like that aside from the Bigfoot?
Well, it depends on the creatures. I mean, there's a lot of different creatures that are, similar from state to state. They're mostly
Mhm.
like a lot of lake monsters are the
Yeah.
same. People are reporting the Loch Ness monster type thing. Uh, I lake monsters are a grain of salt thing with me because a
Yeah.
number of lake monsters that have been reported were from man-made reservoirs. Like, okay,
Mm.
how did it get there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, but some of them are also kind of believable. There's one in Arkansas in the White Lake. It's called Whitey. It's not racist. It's the White Lake, and that's just what they called it. But it's just a huge, either a reptile or fish, depending on who said anything. There was one that Mark Twain wrote in one of his autobiographies, one of his memoirs. Life on the Mississippi was the name of the memoir. He wrote about the river devil in the Mississippi that was an enormous catfish
Mm.
that would surface and knock boats over. And okay, I mean that's got some historic tie. That's
Yeah.
kind of cool. But a lot of lake monsters I'm really iffy about. The Cadborosaurus, however, from the Pacific Ocean, it absolutely fascinates me because there are petroglyphs, Native American petroglyphs of it for 1,000 years ago, and it's been reported up until like the 1970s. People have witnessed it. There was
Wow.
also a picture taken of the Cadborosaurus that was pulled out of the belly of a sperm whale back in the 30s or 40s. And
Mm.
it's just like a 20, 30, 40 foot long sea serpent with a horse's head.
Whoa.
So, I mean,
That's strange.
I'd like to see more about that. The thing about the difference between the lake and the ocean is that's absolutely vast. We've
Yes.
through satellites we have mapped 95% of our ocean, but we've only explored about 5% of it. We have no
Right.
clue what is living down there at all.
Yeah, and then you see some of the footage of the deep sea animals or fish, every once in a while, and they're like alien. They're like completely different than
Yeah,
anything else. It's crazy.
yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if you're familiar with Thor Heyerdahl or not. He was a Norwegian anthropologist, and back in the early 1950s, he had a hypothesis that people from Peru settled the islands in the Pacific,
Hmm.
and he had a feeling that they did because some of the architecture on the islands are like it is in Peru. They have some of the same plants, and they have some of the words are the same.
Hmm.
And none of his colleagues thought he was right because they couldn't have gotten from Peru 4 or 5 thousand miles out into the Pacific Ocean with the rafts that the ancient Peruvians used. So he and a few other Norwegians built a raft like they would have had back then and got in the ocean and went 4 or 5 thousand miles out there.
Wow.
But while they were out there, he's got his book is Kon-Tiki, which was the name of the raft. It's a great read. But in one spot, he was writing about at night, he would sit there all the way away from shipping lanes. There was nobody around. And there would be lights from underneath the ocean. Under the water, there were lights that would come up
Yeah.
and follow the boat. And there were also globules, the globs, he said were like as big as soccer balls that would come up out of the water, but they were eyes that would watch their raft.
What the?
And it's like,
Whoa.
okay, what the hell are those?
Yeah.
Here we got a scientist looking at them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna believe what he's seeing because he's a trained scientist, but yeah, we
Yeah.
don't know what that is.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I think the seas are very mysterious.
My best friend was in the Navy for 7 years, and I've asked him so many times if he's seen anything weird in the water when he was out there in the Pacific, and no, he didn't. I'm so disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. This kind of leads me right to another question, which is, aside from Bigfoot and things like that, what do you think is what cryptid do you think has the most compelling evidence for it that you've seen?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially discounting Bigfoot, because I think that's the one that's going to be found.
Golden.
I do. Yeah. It depends on how you define cryptid. And I'm going to go outside of the United States. I think the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger, is still alive. There have been so many reports of seeing it. There are probably, small pockets of, breeding population in the bush in Australia that it's going to be there. And other than that, let me just say, and I'm going to give an example. Whatever the native populations anywhere are sure exists, that's going to be found. And I'm going to give this example. Natives in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, for years and years told Western people of these tall bipedal apes that look like chimpanzees, but they're bigger than chimps. They act like gorillas. They make nests like gorillas. They howl at the moon. They're big and strong enough to kill a lion or a leopard and eat it. And they're out there. And, these stories were frowned upon until Western science discovered what is called the Billy ape, Bili, because it was discovered in the Billy forest. Yeah. And wow, Western science in 1996 discovered that, hey, here are these really tall bipedal chimpanzees that make nests like gorillas. They howl at the moon. They can kill a leopard and they eat it. Listen to the local people. Listen to the natives. Yeah. They've seen this stuff. So I'm not sure exactly, other than the thylacine, what's going to be discovered, but it's going to be something that people already know about.
Right. Yeah. Now, and you make a good point about some of the native people and their folklore, or not folklore, their historical stories, that there's probably some truth to a lot of those things. I mean, why make it up, right?
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's like, okay, there are, and I'm gonna throw Bigfoot out there first and then move on. But Bigfoot has been seen, and this is over centuries upon centuries, in North America, Central America, South America, Europe, all throughout Asia, Africa, Australia, New Zealand. There's even a Sri Lankan Bigfoot. Okay, these things are everywhere, and they were known before we were all connected. Okay, same with ghosts. Every civilization has had ghost stories. Every civilization has had dragon stories. I'm not saying there are dragons out there, because that sounds a little crazy, but I'm okay with sounding a little crazy. But why?
Right.
I've heard explanations that, it's the collective consciousness that we're afraid of lizards. Okay, yeah, I'm afraid of snakes and lizards, but I'm not going to come up with Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
I'm not going to come up with this that is so similar to the Japanese dragon, that's so similar to the Piazza from North America, or, something from Australia. I mean, ancient peoples had to have seen something to come up with this. And since all their stories are so similar, maybe they saw the same thing.
Yeah. It's a good point. I mean, and for many years, going back, way back, these, I don't know, even some of the hieroglyphic type things that you see out there. I'm talking more like with the UFO and stuff like that. But I mean, you see stuff like that too. People just discredit it. But now more and more people are going, well, that looks too much like what we're talking about today.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There there are petroglyphs in, well, heck, it might be in Utah. I'm not sure, but
There are some.
I know it's in that
Yeah.
that area. There are a couple of petroglyphs that look like theropod dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Okay, what else is that going to be? I don't know. There's certain
Crazy.
parts of the world whenever. Okay, so we had a fraction or a fragment of a comet, or we had an asteroid, whatever, this huge thing that hit the Yucatan Peninsula and killed off all the dinosaurs. Couldn't there be certain places on Earth that maybe a few survived? There have been so many reports of pterodactyls
Yeah.
all over the planet, and theropod dinosaurs, and like the Mocalia mamimbe from the Congo, which sounds like a sauropod. It sounds like a brontosaurus, or I mean a apatosaurus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I even ran into a story, an archived story, somewhere in Arizona from the late 1800s, claiming of a pterodactyl that
With the cowboys around it.
Yeah,
I saw that. Yeah,
that was interesting. I didn't look to see how authentic it was, but it was interesting.
it was interesting.
you know.
I have no idea. Most photos I view as fake because they're so easy to fake. Same with videos, unless they're from like the 1940s, and then I'm cool with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I was just looking at it. I've got some maps over here, and I was just the other day looking up and recognizing how big Alaska is and just how barren it is.
Right.
I mean, there's not a lot of people up there. And then you look at just in Brazil, the forest out there, and it's like, I mean, we're talking like almost a third to a half the size of the United States.
Right.
And it's just barren. So like if there's things in there could be anything in there.
Well, and one of the things about that, exactly about that, that has to do with the Amazon basin and Canada, because not just Alaska, but Canada. Oh my gosh, like 80% of the population is right on the border of the United States, because you get too much farther north and it's cold, really cold.
Yeah.
There is, and I can't think of the names of these creatures right now, but there's reports, and the latest one that I collected from Canada was from some indigenous people from 1985. The entire family saw this. It was like a 12 to 15 foot tall hairy creature that was standing on its hind legs. It had a flat snout, 3 clawed hands, 3 clawed feet, and a tail. And the same report has come from the Amazon basin of the same type of creature. From the Yucatan, I know what they're called here because it's not an exotic name. They're called cave cows, but it's the same description, same type of height, same 3 clawed hands, 3 clawed feet, tail. They can stand on their 2 feet. They can run on 4 legs. They sound like a giant ground sloth. And there were 2 species of giant ground sloth, one in North America, one in Central and South America. And I mean, who's saying these things can't still be alive in these, this wilderness area? Because as you said, there's nothing there.
Right.
And if people are there, they're just visitors. They're not there all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I keep thinking of, so this doesn't apply too much, but my grandfather was a missionary before I was born, and he had spent some time down in the Amazon area. And he came back saying he ran into a tribe of white Indians, like white people. And it was odd because people were saying, there's none of that down there. He's like, I ran into them. And once again, it just proves that who knows in some of these areas, like what's down there. It's still pretty barren. People are not there.
We don't know nearly as much as we think we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. Well, let's see here. This is cool. I really like talking about some of this stuff. It just gets my mind thinking, and 100 more questions start to come up. But I'm wondering, for you, have you ever had any unexplained weird encounters or seen anything yourself?
Cryptids, no. I saw a full-bodied apparition when I was about 8 years old. I've heard a disembodied voice before, cold spots, that sort of thing. But I've never encountered a cryptid, which is fine with me because it's cool when it happens to somebody else.
You're right.
It's not. It wouldn't be so cool when it happens to me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. When you hear some of these Bigfoot encounters, I'm like, yeah, I'll live through your description.
Yeah, right. Because wait a second, I've read something that he might have twisted a head off a couple guys. So you just go out there. Yeah.
Well, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I'm feeling like I think we've alluded to this earlier, that modern technology will probably pick up some of these things with more and more drones, trail cams, and these different things. I think, but to your other point, who knows what we're going to be able to believe in this, in videos, because now people are just for fun, for kicks and giggles, they're making videos just because they can.
Just because they can.
So you don't even know what you can trust anymore.
Right.
But
what it's going to be is, some scientist having Bigfoot on a slab, dissecting him. That's what it's got to be. I mean, I would hate to think it would come to that, but it's got to if we need to prove if Bigfoot or any cryptid is going to be proven to exist, it's got to at least be captured.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, with all the different cryptids you have looked at, is there one that you could pick that you would like to see or run across yourself that you think would be just a cool thing?
One that I would like to see, but I would like to be inside a car. Okay. There have been a lot of reports throughout North America of North American hyenas.
Oh, wow.
And we had a hyena species in North America during the Pleistocene era. A lot of cryptids, I mean, heck, you could even consider Bigfoot a Pleistocene animal if you think it might have been a Gigantopithecus, 10-foot tall anthropoid that might have come over on the land bridge. It might have been a Pleistocene animal, but we had North American lions and camels and all this fun stuff back during those eras. But there have been so many hyena reports throughout the United States and Canada. I'd like to see one of those. Hyenas are scary as hell, by the way. Have you ever seen one in real life? I've seen
Not
one
in real life.
I've seen one in a zoo.
Yeah.
That's as close as I've been, and they're terrifying.
Yeah, I've only seen, bits and pieces of a National Geographic thing or something like that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, they'll go after a lion as a pack. They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
They're big honey badgers. They don't care.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, are there any, other than the Pacific Northwest, but really it's anywhere when we talk about Bigfoot. So let's put Bigfoot to the side. Is there any region in the United States where you think probably there deserves to be more attention to try to really find a specific cryptid?
I would go
something
to
that's
any
close.
desert, any mountain region, any thick forest.
Yeah.
There's a huge swath of this country, 40+%, that's uninhabited. I mean, there are people who visit there. There are people who drive through, but they don't live there 24/7 and can actually see these things. So if the population is down in these areas, man, these things can hide.
Yeah.
It's their place. It's not ours. So, it's more to the west. I mean, up in your neck of the woods, that would be where I'd like to have people really look, because that's probably where they are.
Well, yeah, you're right. I think of these mountains all down here, run down the middle of the state here, and it's like, they're so big, And you just wonder sometimes in some of these areas, has anybody ever stood here? It's that
Right,
remote,
exactly.
that big.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody might have stood there 250 years ago, and that might have been
Right.
it.
Yeah.
But then again, we also have, there are packs of coyotes that live in downtown Chicago. So
What? Really?
really, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe there's some cryptids living in cities. We just don't know it yet.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they're running through the sewers or
Yeah.
something. Who knows, right? Well, look, this has been great. I love talking about these things. Anything else about your book? I mean, we've dived into a lot of things. You've got a lot of stuff in your book. Is there anything that we should still chat about or talk about?
Well, I don't know. We've talked about hairy things. We've talked about swimming things. We've mentioned flying things too. One of the flying things that absolutely fascinates me, and I'm not saying if any of these things are real. I have a journalistic background, so I talk to people, I do research, I write stories. Thunderbirds. Man, I love Thunderbird stories because they they really coincide with the time that the Territorn lived in North America. And the Territorn was like, a condor, but
Yeah.
it had a 20-foot wingspan, which is the wingspan of a small, plane. These
Right.
things were real and they were enormous. And the Native Americans, called them Thunderbirds because when they beat their wings, it sounded like thunder.
Hmm.
And were able to snatch up people and cattle and deer and whatnot and carry them away because they were so big. And there have been reports, in the 1900s. That's not that long ago. I'm not talking like 1910. I'm talking like 1972. At least to me,
Oh,
that's
wow.
not that long ago. There was like a
Right, I'm with
12-year-old kid in Pennsylvania. His mom ran out in the yard screaming because this huge bird had grabbed his shoulders and was starting to take off. But her screaming and her throwing things at it made the bird drop the boy. So there are still stories. There was a story in the 80s of a pilot in a small plane in Alaska, which would be a nice place for these things to hide.
Oh, yeah.
And he was flying and he looked over and he saw another plane. He thought it was another plane until he saw that it was a bird the size of his plane.
Right.
So, I mean, I love Thunderbird stories because they could actually still be around.
Yeah. Man. I know that would be so terrifying, seeing something like that coming down. Claws out, ready to grab you. Oh yeah.
Man, again, I grew up on a farm. Farm animals are big enough. I don't want to mess with something that large.
Yeah. Jason, this has been fun. I've loved this. Thank you for spending some time with us today to talk about this. And folks, he's got a book of 251 cryptids. But you're going to have another book coming out soon.
Great.
Tell us about that.
September 8th, Chasing North American Monsters. And I go from the Arctic Circle all the way down to Panama. And I've got more than 250 monsters in that one, too.
So everybody, by the time this episode is airing, it will be available. So where can people go to find your books? And how can they tie into your... do you have a website, different things that people can tie into?
Okay, so the monster books, my publisher is Llewellyn, LLEWELLYN.com. Or all my books are also on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any of those places. Yeah, and I've got them at my website, jasonoffutt.com. Yeah.
And can you spell that for
JASONOF? I'm also on Facebook, Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. Twitter, Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can look me up there.
Thank you, Jason, once again, for spending some time with us and sharing this cool book and topic, which I love.
Hey, thanks for the invitation. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I agree. I've loved it. And for everybody out there, thank you for being with us today and really diving in and learning a little bit about the cryptids and the monsters out there right here in the United States. Do you know of any? Tell us. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear about it. Because, once again, every state has more than one of these. So, there's probably one in your own backyard. Anyway, as we wrap up here today, let me just say to everybody, hey, if you like this kind of content, please go ahead and subscribe. Also, leave a comment, like we were saying earlier, and also tell a friend. Share some of this. This is a great time. Halloween's a wonderful time of the year where we get to think about all these different strange and crazy things. Now, as we turn off the lights, remember everybody, there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality, so always keep your eyes, ears, and minds open, and until next time, stay safe. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.